I'm hopefully perfect. I think that has started. Great. Um, so just so you know, I'm not sure how much you know about like the project that we're working on. So the enhancement themes I'm sure you've heard of is run by the QAA, and I'm the deputy student lead. And the student leads usually work with a couple of different like elected student officers from different universities on a collaborative project
Mhm.
that's led by the students. So it's like that's a student-led project. And this year, our sort of overall theme is community partnerships,
Mhm.
or like building community partnerships within tertiary education. Um, and yeah, so I know that you're involved with enterprise education and also BIP, and I was hoping to maybe just quickly like gather your thoughts on that because I know both of them are quite involved with community partnerships. Um, so yeah, I was wondering if you could start with just a sort of broad overview of the projects that you're involved with.
So as you mentioned, I am heavily involved with VIP, which stands for Vertically Integrated Projects. So just to give you a very broad overview, these are credit-bearing research modules for undergraduates. So these modules are designed to be very experiential. The focus is on teamwork and gaining active research skills and learning by doing. So we're sort of at that interesting juncture with VIP because our VIP program at St. Andrews is still quite new, I'd say. We started in 2020. So we've got 12 active modules at the moment. And it's sort of like an interesting juncture to have this conversation because we're sort of getting into that first stages of, because we're also trying to actively cultivate new projects. So we're sort of at that stage now where we're sort of a lot of our I think our modules, sort of the projects that we have under VIP right now, a lot of the work that the students do, a lot of the outputs coming out of it, um, definitely have an impact on our sort of immediate St. Andrews community, working with sort of local five-based institutions, for example. But we're in that stage now where we're hoping that some of our projects will build a lot more of the sort of formal sort of connections with community. So to give you an example, one of our VIP projects, which is called HMO CAPS in St. Andrews, has been looking at sort of has been investigating data and gathering data about the impact of the sort of HMO sort of caps in St. Andrews on the St. Andrews housing market. I think anyone who's familiar with St. Andrews knows that housing is a big issue for this community. So this project, for example, has been sort of gathering and analyzing data that will, we think will might have sort of interesting bearing on how we think about the housing issue in St. Andrews. I have my own VIP project called Cinema Cultures, where my students have been looking at sort of using the case study of films and specifically cinema buildings. We've been looking at how can we tell the stories of different regions in Fife by focusing on a historical cinema building, for example. So VIPs have also become, I think, an interesting way for our student community to sort of, engage in research that helps us understand Scotland better, Fife better, St Andrews better. So yeah, so that's a sort of broad overview of, but yeah, we're not at that stage yet where our projects, I would say, are directly working with community organizations, but all of those connections are sort of in the making, I would say.
Yeah, perfect. And I was wondering, so when sort of at the inception of the VIP, I was wondering how involved you were and what were your sort of individual like motivations to become more involved and how you saw like envisioned the project in the near future.
So I sort of came in at that point where um, the university knew that the VIP modules were about to become an established program. And then I was sort of brought in as one of it's a very small team. It's a small team of 3 people at the moment. It's going to be 2 people soon. It's going to be the director of the program and me as the coordinator. So I've been involved from the early stages, I would say. As I think when it started in 2020, I think what we were hoping for is, we just wanted to see if students and staff would engage with the program because, again, VIPs are very different from your conventional module. The other thing that makes VIP different is they're vertically integrated, which means that the same module can have a first year student working with a second year student working with a fourth year student. To make that even, more interesting, it can be a first year student from computer science working with a third year history student and a fourth year English and comparative literature student, all working on a humanities project. So again, our hope, again, this is quite quite distinct from the conventional module. So really in the first 2 semesters we were hoping for, and I must say probably a bit anxious just to see whether our student and staff body would embrace something like this. And we're very happy to say that we have they have we started with 5 projects in our launch year, and we're now up to 15 projects, of which 12 are currently active and 3 are on pause because the staff are on research leave or just taking a break, for example. And we now have it's been really a slow process, I would say, because again, again, these modules are quite different. So we've been reliant on just sort of like word of mouth, but also we've been trying to, since we are talking about community building, our focus has also been on how can we sort of almost create like a community of VIP students. So something we do, for example, now every year is we have a VIP conference where current VIP students sort of talk about all the work that they're doing. It's a chance for them to sort of showcase all the wonderful original that research that they're doing at the undergraduate level. But it's also our way of reaching out to our, not just our university community, but also the broader community as well, saying like, these are the kinds of research that undergraduate students are doing that help us understand St. Andrews better, Scotland better, the world around us better. So it's been, so we're about 3 years old now. So I would say we're at that stage where we're still hoping to sort of bring on new active projects. We're trying to build all of those interdisciplinary connections. Because again, coming back to the idea of community, we're quite keen to we're quite keen that VIP almost becomes a community where interdisciplinary research is celebrated, especially the kinds of research where that brings together students and staff from STEM, arts and humanities, and social sciences, all working together, bringing their unique perspectives to interesting problems.
Perfect. And I think it's quite obvious, like pedagogically, like VIPs with the interdisciplinary and research-based work is quite helpful for any students involved in it. And I know this is quite early, so you might not have like a very concrete example, but can you think of any like sort of vague way in which a VIP or VIP as a whole has been like helpful to local communities or a particular local community or something like that?
One of our projects, which is called organization histories, which is supervised by Dr. Ian Smith. So I'm not an expert on this project, but just to give you a broad overview. So this VIP has been looking at the history of a local St. Andrews organization every semester. And the last two semesters, my understanding is that this project has been looking at the St. Andrews Botanical Gardens. So again, like, I don't know if you've ever been to the Botanical Gardens, but I think it's a
Yes.
wonderful space, and it's a space that I don't know, somehow still feels a bit hidden, that I think a lot of students who study in St. Andrews don't know what a relaxing space this is. So this project, the students for the last two semesters have been sort of working directly with people who are in charge of the botanical gardens, and they've been trying to sort of, they've run surveys of people who've been to the botanical gardens, surveys of people who haven't been to this to the space. They've sort of done analysis of sort of the kinds of reviews that people have left on websites like TripAdvisor, for example, and they've tried to come back with strategies for how the botanical gardens could expand, could become more popular, can become almost like a community space, really, for people in St. Andrews. So, yeah, so this is like a very localized, but I think a really nice example of the kind of work that students are doing.
Yeah, that's really cool. I thought I should mention in my last year I was involved with Dr. Watson's human rights clinic that I
Yes.
think now is mutual aid clinic. It was a very rewarding experience for me, of course, but also I think we were directly working with the traveler community in Fife,
Yep.
and it was a very good insight into like advocacy research. And although like advocacy is something that is like a long term, um, like we might not see any tangible changes in the short term. I think it's
Yep.
very obvious that uh, eventually there is going to be some kind of advantages to the local community.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on that note, I should also mention that there's another one of our projects, which is called Visualizing Peace, which has been doing some really exciting work. So, one of the things that they have done recently is the student team working on Visualizing Peace has actually put together a photography exhibition called Picturing Peace in Congo, which is currently, I think, still on at the buyer. So you can actually go to the buyer and look at this exhibition that the students sort of contributed towards putting together. So I think this is also a really nice example of how VIP can, um, yeah, engage with sort of and engage with people just beyond just our immediate university community, but also sort of, yeah, collab. So yeah, I think there's lots of scope here. So for my own VIP, um, based on the feedback from students, we've sort of slightly shifted our focus, and the focus of my project, which is now called Film Media and Scotland's Future. And what we are going to be doing is my students are going to be thinking about how can we understand the impact of the film and media industry on Scotland's economy, tourism coming to Scotland, Scotland's soft power, for example. So we will be collaborating with an organization called Day Screen, which is the film office for Fife and Dundee and Perth. So we will be working with them to sort of get our students to think about, okay, how can we sort of assess, can we even assess the impact, the economic and the sort of soft power impact of Scotland in relation to the film and media. So again, like a lot, yeah, so I think this is sort of but I think also the where we are right now with VIP also just sort of shows you that how long it takes to build a community. I think that's really
Yeah.
important, that community building only works when it's sort of organic, but sometimes that process is not something that can be rushed. So again, we're sort of seeing that a lot of the VIP students who come into the program now are coming in because they've heard from a friend or a peer that they've done VIP. So it's been interesting seeing how even within VIP, just the process of building that community, it's organic. It's a bit slow, but I'd rather that it be organic because we're getting students who really, really want to do VIP because they've heard great stuff about it.
Yeah. I was actually wondering, so one thing is in case this were to be like integrated into other institutions, um, was there benefits and costs to having established this VIP as like a separate module almost, as opposed to like integrating these sort of community building approaches within existing modules and educational systems?
Yeah, so I would say that one big plus is because something I've been thinking about a lot recently is, as someone who's now working in enterprise education, just to give a bit of context, I was once a student at St. Andrews. I was a PhD student, and now I'm a member of staff. And we're trying very hard to just sort of base all our work around the idea that enterprise is for everyone, and really sort of thinking about how can we make enterprise education more inclusive, more accessible to all students. But I know that certainly when I was a student, if someone had tried to talk to me about enterprise and entrepreneurship, I would have, my thought would have been that's not for me, because I think we all have an idea of that, that's what an entrepreneur looks like, and I'm not that person. So I think the really amazing advantage of VIP is that it's integrated into the curriculum. So students get credit for doing VIP. It is, the credits that they get for VIP contribute directly towards their degree pathway. So, there might be sometimes when it comes to sort of internships and other extracurricular opportunities, I think there are sometimes issues with in terms of inclusivity. Not all students, for example, might be able to do something like an unpaid internship, or a research internship. Whereas with something like VIP, if it's part of the curriculum, then we're integrating that and bringing that directly into the classroom. The other the other advantage is just sort of again all the really cool interdisciplinary connections that VIP facilitates. Working on a VIP is also very much a lot like working, a workplace, really, where in a modern workplace, you're not going to be working with a team where everyone's from the same background as you, the same sort of disciplinary experience, the same kind of sort of, yeah, so the same skill set. And that's core to the VIP module, that that you're going to be part of an interdisciplinary, diverse team. So we're bringing that experience directly to the classroom. So that's the advantage. In terms of challenges, yeah, I think anything different, there will always be roadblocks that you have to sort of work around. And again, these challenges aren't always they're, I would say they're never um intentional from an institutional standpoint. But it's just that if you've got, thousands of modules which work one way, and then you've got a handful which work the other way, sometimes it's almost like the unglamorous challenges of, how does this work with like our back end systems, for
Yeah.
example, and how does this work into in terms of staff, for example, how does this work in terms of their workload, and sort of, yeah, so how do we sort of how do we make this part of the degree, how can we embed this into the degree without just making it like a conventional module? So how do we make sure that it's different enough while still making sure that it works and it makes sense within the student journey? But again, I don't think these are sort of disadvantages. I think these are actually just sort of challenges, and I know that as a staff member, I've certainly enjoyed like the pedagogical challenges as well. VIP, for example, the assessments are quite different.
Yeah.
So in the same module, you can have this, different students taking 10 credits, 15 credits, and 20 credits all of those
Yeah.
different credit levels within the same module. So if you set a research assignment, how do you assess someone who's taking it for 10 credits versus how do you assess someone who's taking the same assignment for 20 credits? So actually, these
Yeah.
have all been really interesting pedagogical challenges. And I think the students themselves, I think they like being part of that sort of challenge, because I think the students understand that they're helping sort of grow something that is genuinely unconventional and is, I may be biased, but brilliant. So yeah, we're just sort of learning to embrace those challenges, really.
Yeah, perfect. I think that kind of covers the second question I had. So I think just the last broad sort of question to end this conversation is what is one tip that you'd give to staff or students looking to establish and develop community partnerships within whatever local region they are?
Yeah, I would say it's okay to start small. Yeah,
Hmm.
so I would say it's okay to start small. I know that certainly as um, someone who's has both experienced the staff and the student side of it. Sometimes I know that as a staff member, um, there can be a bit of a temptation that, oh, I will only initiate this community partnership if I'm ready to do something big, like put on an event or apply for a funding application. But honestly, I feel like a lot of those, it's fine to arrive at that point by just with a conversation. So just start with a conversation. So a lot of the sort of interesting partnerships that I'm hoping to build on, they've just started with a request for, hey, can you come and do a talk for our students on what your
Yeah,
organization do? What is it that you, what is your job, what is your job mean, what do you do, how do you contribute to the community? And students are always able to gain so much from that. So I think that would be my biggest advice. Don't wait for things to progress to a point where it has to be like a big funding application. It can be a
yeah,
guest lecture, it can just be a meeting, it could just be an invitation to come and speak to your students in the classroom. So start small.
perfect. I think that's great advice, and a great place to end this. I'm just gonna stop
Yeah,
recording.
of course.